a year-round program of educational activities with, for instance, our local primary schools and community events, the most famous being our annual Pumpkin Lantern Festival. But that's a whole other story.
Yeah, I've heard that Vanessa and Alice, you've both been to the Pumpkin Festival, is that right?
I've carved pumpkins, many pumpkins, not 1,000, which was carved last year. I think it was over 1,000, and they've all put around the garden, and they look amazing. And they get thousands of people queuing outside the door. I think it was like, how many people was it, Marie, last year?
Oh, I think last year we did it. It was a record year. We had about 10 days of lit up pumpkins. So we had about 20,000 people came over the week. Has to be said, the Pumpkin Lantern Festival, to me, epitomizes what the Dalston Eastern Curve Garden is. It's very much by the community, for the community, and it really allows every single person who comes through the door in those the weekend that we carve them to carve their own artwork, really, and then to light it all up together as one big spectacle. And it really is a spectacle, and I'm really keeping my fingers crossed that this year, all things considered, we will once again be able to do our annual Pumpkin Lantern Festival.
That would be amazing. I mean, just for brevity, I'm going to sum up for our attendees just some incredible work that Curve Garden's been managing to do during this lockdown period, which includes donating flowers to local London hospitals, so UCLH and Homerton, which most Londoners will know, hopefully not too personally. There's also been donating to Hackney Food Bank, which is brilliant, and also supporting children that have been going to school, still having to go to school because they are children of essential workers. Dalston Curve Garden have been supporting with seed projects and sort of really interesting, probably quite therapeutic initiatives. And then a key thing to sort of highlight here, isn't it, Marie, is that you, during this period, have lost 100% of your funding. Is that right?
Yeah, because we generate all our own funding, and that's from the cafe. So the minute we closed, no more source of income. And as I briefly explained to you, Roxy, we're a seasonal business, really, but we open 12 months of the year, but we generate really all of the money to keep the garden open for those 12 months in 6 months from April to September. So financially, the closure has had a pretty bad understatement impact on our finances. So so that's our kind of our model, and that's how we operate, and we're very proud, I have to say, of the fact that we all work so hard together, and we never have to look for any kind of grant funding or anything. We're completely independent.
Or seed funding. Sorry,
pardon?
I just made a bad joke. Seed funding. Right, sorry, wasn't my best. But during this period, what has blown my mind for someone that is struggling personally to keep 3 houseplants alive, Exhibit A, I'm just showing you the good side, but you've been keeping all of your garden plants alive, haven't you, during this period?
Yeah, I mean, it's been very challenging, and it's lovely to see. I have to say, Bath has been one of our key volunteers. It's been with us over the last months, and she's been doing that in London, not LA, in case you're wondering how that works. Yeah. And Bean, I can see on screen as well, and another volunteer, Angelie. So we obviously, like everybody, we had to seriously limit how many people could come into the garden because of social distancing, etc. But we started to increase those numbers, but it has been pretty challenging, particularly because there's been a bit of a drought here. So the main thing's been watering, but also seed sowing, and we were very lucky to be donated 170 plants from a cancelled show garden. So that was wonderful, but also created an additional task for the tiny group of us who were there trying to keep everything alive and thriving. So the garden's looking pretty good, I have to say, but we were very, very, very heartbroken that people, the visitors, couldn't come in and our volunteers and enjoy it, because kind of a bit cruel really, it has never looked more beautiful than this spring. It just surpassed itself. So we've taken pictures and video, but we just can't wait to get everybody back in.
Well, no, thank you, Marie. I think we're probably going to move on to intro our other guests that are with us, but that is so wonderful. For everyone that's on our that's just joined us in the last few minutes, welcome. I'm Roxy. I'm one of the hosts for our exciting session today, along with Vanessa.
Hello, everybody.
And the rest of the SSUK team. How this works, just as a bit of a heads up, so I'm going to be introducing our two plant experts, which is Beth, based in LA, and Josh, also based in LA, because we just like to, oh, hi, yeah, cool. And we'll hand over to them shortly. Beth is going to be talking through some of your questions and some key points. Then we're going to move to Josh, and he's got some very funky, like, microclimate tips to create different environments within your own house. I think I've explained that basically right. Yeah. And then just keep an eye on our chat, because this is a very interactive workshop. So if you've got questions for anyone of the team or each other, or Beth or Josh or Marie, please just flag it up in the chat, and we'll try our best to make sure that they're aware and can answer you. And then also just to highlight that, of course, as you've heard from Marie, this particular garden could really do with your support right now. So if you haven't donated yet, and you'd like to, we've put in the chat already the page to go to, and there's a PayPal link there. But I just want to say right at the start that thanks to you amazing people, we've already raised £550 just through your kit donations. So that's incredible. So that is going to be hugely helpful. Right, so Beth, let's tell us a little bit about you and your involvement, and let's get on to some houseplants.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, great. So I have some slides, which is sort of dorky, but it's great. So as you mentioned, my name's Beth, and I'm a volunteer at the garden. I currently am in LA visiting family, even though I live in London. My sister just graduated, so I came home, did distancing, and now I'm at my parents' house. And Josh is a friend that I met through my sister, who has an amazing house full of houseplants. And so because I'm on the road, I wanted to include him, so we had some great plants to look at. And also he has created, as Roxy said, a lot of different microclimates in his home, which is what we're going to talk about today. So again, the reason that we're doing this today is to raise money for the garden. So Roxy and Marie covered everything, but just wanted to call out sort of where you can follow and donate to the garden on their website. I would encourage you to follow on Instagram, because there's also going to be a lot of information about crowdfunding and when the garden's going to reopen. So follow to make sure you have all the latest news. Okay. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what sort of microclimates are appropriate for what houseplants and how you can create different microclimates in your house. So as the first step, I'm going to talk about sort of back to the roots, which is a concept from this book that you see on the right, How Not to Kill Your Plants by Nick Southern. And it's, I own this book, and I found a lot of great information in here in sort of learning about different microclimates and sort of where the plant originates from, and then how you can recreate that microclimate in your home. So for those of you in London, Nick owns a flower and plant store in Bethnal Green called Grace and Thorn. So it's a great shop and a great book. So I just wanted to call it out as I am using the content. And then after that, we'll pass it to Josh, and he's going to do a tour of his house, which has, like I mentioned, loads of great plants. And he's going to show us how he's sort of created little microclimates within his apartment, his flat. And then the main event will, I know what everybody's waiting for, is we'll do houseplant Q&A and surgery. So you can ask us questions about your own plants, and hopefully we can provide some help. So moving on. So basically what I'm going to talk about is different climates in the world, and then what plants come from those climates, and then how you can recreate those climates in your home. So first, the rainforest. So lots of our favorite plants come from the rainforest, different palms, cheese plants, monstera, devil's ivy, like lots of trailing plants, as well as ferns and prayer plants. And so, you know, what you see in the rainforest is you see plants that either sort of live in the canopy, or plants that live on the floor, and they like sort of shaded dappled light. And you see these plants like to crawl sort of up to the light. So lots of crawling plants. A term that you might hear Josh and I use is epiphytes, or epiphytic plants. These are plants that live on other plants, mostly trees, but they're not parasitic. So they have aerial roots. So if any of you have a monstera or a cheese plant, you might have noticed that it has these brown sort of fingers that come off of it. Those are aerial roots that are actually meant for it to climb up a tree and grow up a tree to get closer to the light. So in your own home, how do you sort of recreate a rainforest? London is not a rainforest, obviously, neither is LA. So number one place, if you have a light in your bathroom, is to put your rainforest plants in your bathroom. They love the humidity and the steam. And then also sort of, another way that I love to recreate that climate is to put plants near your tea kettle or your washing machine, or sorry, your dishwasher. So anytime you're making a cup of tea or doing the dishes, the steam will sort of make that plant really happy. And then in general, rainforest plants just don't love a ton of sun. They do, you know, not completely dark. They like to climb towards sun, but generally a little bit darker because the rainforest has a big canopy of trees. So moving on to the desert. Desert plants include succulents, cactus, etc. And, you know, pretty obviously how you recreate that in your home is with sun. So really bright window sills, preferably south-facing, but do make sure, you know, if your plants are touching the window and it's a particularly hot summer, the leaves could get scorched, so just be careful of that. And then also, you know, you want to sort of, because it gets cold at night in the desert, you can sort of try to recreate that by parts of your house that might get cold at night. And then also, if you have any outdoor space that's in the sun, like absolutely you can put your desert plants out during the summer to get them even more sun. Now moving to the subtropics. So subtropics, parts of South Africa, parts of Australia, South America. The types of plants that live here are the Kentia palm. Those are the ones that are behind Vanessa right now. Spider plants, asparagus ferns, oxalis triangularis, which are those beautiful purple plants that I'm sure a lot of you have seen that look like shamrocks, and they close at night and open during the day. They're really beautiful. They have tiny little purple flowers too. The types of places in your house where these can live, they're really low maintenance. So just sort of chill zones in your house that get some sun but some shade. They're not super picky. They will also be happy in a humid bathroom because they're in sort of close to a tropical part of the world. But again, the rainforest plants are really supposed to soak up all that humidity. So if you have rainforest plants, let them take center stage in the bathroom. And east-facing windows. So they don't want full sun like your desert plants. So just maybe if you have a window that's not so hot. And finally, I think we have two more. So moving to the Mediterranean. So Mediterranean, lots of outdoor plants like geraniums, jasmine, and citrus. So again, lots of sun if you have sunny windowsills. And if you have outdoor space, they love fresh air, where the buds can bloom, but bring them inside in the winter, as they don't like to get too cold, obviously, because in this part of the world, it doesn't get too cold. And finally, bogs or marshes. So in bogs or marshes, the main sort of characteristic is constant running water. So what this means is that plants don't necessarily get a lot of their nutrients from the soil that they're in, because the water is constantly running and maybe washing away those nutrients. So you see a lot of carnivorous plants like Venus flytrap. So they are getting their nutrients in other ways, either by being epiphytic and living on other plants or by being carnivorous. So, and then you also have a lot of ferns in this part of the world as well. So again, similar to rainforests, moist bathrooms, damp areas, and not a ton of sun. So that's my whistle-stop tour of the world. And now we're gonna pass it to Josh to show us how he has created microclimates.
Amazing. I didn't even know that bog plant had its own genus, so to speak. But I guess for anyone lucky enough to have a pond, maybe there are some bog plants hanging out there and some toads. Just to assure everyone, presumably, Beth, we can share this deck with people that have attended. Yeah, so don't worry if you're like me and you're trying to make notes. You don't need to. All the top tips will be captured here, and we'll make sure that you've got them afterwards. Okay.
Yeah, and if you want to buy the book, it's a really great book and has a lot of other information in it. Also, there's a Kindle online version for £3. So that's where I got these photos. So it's a really great resource.
Amazing. Top tips. No doubt we'll have questions about this shortly, but let's move to Josh.
Yes.
Josh, do you share your screen if you need to? Oh no, you're going to share us your house.
Oh wait, let me unmute. There we go.
Am I unmuted?
Yes. Hi, Josh.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thanks all for the intro, and Beth for kind of laying out the basics. I'm just going to get right into it, starting with, let's see. Okay, so this is my balcony, which has kind of a mix of desert, sort of a mix of desert plants and a few other types. Well, let me just say, like, first, I'll be going through a few different areas in my home, and then I'll be pointing out certain types of plants and certain climates, and then a few little, like, projects that I've done in order to kind of control the conditions a little bit more. So here's my apartment in West LA, and as you can see, it is cloudy today, so you don't really get the full effect of the sun, but this is facing west, a little bit of south, so after about noon, you get the light shining in here, and then it's really bright kind of as the sun goes across and sets in the sky over there. So here we have some cacti and succulents that are like a lot of sun, but they were getting a little bit scorched from this really hot California sun. So we have this little shade cloth that's been put up, and then that provides those the shade. And then so we have a lot of like this kind of coin succulent, some cacti, a little bonsai tree, and then some of these are codex plants that get a really swollen root. And then over here we have some kind of more tropical plants. So maybe this is like the one that could be considered a bog plant. It's a colocasia or taro, and they love water. Like, I don't even let the soil drain because, you know, they basically grow in bogs.
Do you have a tray underneath it to keep it wet?
Yeah, there's a tray. It kind of just, okay, so it kind of just, I let it drain into the tray and then re-soak back up. And then I also have these watering stakes where it's like here, I'll show you.
Yeah.
It's like a ceramic spike.
This is what I do for my plants when I leave my apartment for a long period of time, so they can sort of drink on their own.
Right. Yeah, so I discovered them when I was on vacation, and then I realized I should keep watering it multiple times a week while leaving these stakes in.
Yeah.
I think I need to clean them because it hasn't really been, I think the lines are clogged. But
And like even more DIY version is I just put shoelaces in the dirt and then into the water, and it works just
right. Yeah. Yep. Just like a wick.
Josh,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt. How does that work? Sorry, for the more
Okay. So
basic-minded.
all right. So this is like a clay ceramic material. So the water basically gets absorbed through this tube, and then it's dispersed through the clay. So the action of the roots kind of pulling in water sort of creates a suction that causes this to pull out. It doesn't rely on gravity for the water to come through, but it's called capillary action, where the roots are kind of pulling it in, and then that causes the water to draw from this container.
So it can water itself, basically.
So
Basically,
if we want to do that at home, we should just buy some clay?
Just buy them. No, it's a pre-made product.
Right.
They're called hydro spikes.
But Roxy, you can also just take a shoelace and put it down in the soil, sort of like I use a chopstick or a pencil to make a little bit of a hole, and then put the shoelace in, and then I have a cup of water like that next to it, and the other end of the shoelace goes in the water, and then it waters itself over, sort of slowly. So when I leave I did it before I came here to LA because I'm going to be gone for a few weeks and it's summer. I do it when I go home for Christmas, so my plants can get a little bit more water than while I'm away.
That's amazing. And Marie's nodding knowledgeably, like you knew about it.
And like Josh said, for plants that just love water, you don't have to do it just when you're on holiday. He has it there all the time.
Okay, that's fantastic. We've all got shoelaces, so that's Sorry, Josh, carry on.
No, that's okay. Yeah, and I should have been advocating for the DIY method over the product in the first place.
No, that's fine.
Anyway, so this spot, so y'all just missed the California poppy bloom. But I've got some seeds saved for next year.
Nice.
So yeah, the rest of it, there's a little, I got my workstation over there that's kind of shoved in, so I'm not going to go over there right now. Yeah. Anyway, so
here is where you would put, your definitely your desert plants and any Mediterranean.
Right.
If you had an orange tree, for example, you would stick it out here.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, because of this overhang, it might not be enough light for such a large plant because, it's funny, in the winter, it actually, aside from the shorter day, it gets more light because the sun angle is lower in the sky. So, right in the summer, it's so high that it doesn't shine all the way to the depth of the balcony. So I push them up to this edge so they can get more light. But, for such a larger plant, it's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is kind of desert / Mediterranean / little bog, I guess. Anyway, so a little bit of the kitchen, just kind of have a cluster of plants here. I got a spiral. This is like a rare mutation on this cactus that causes it to grow in a spiral form. And this is another ficus with a large caudex and an olive tree. And then Beth mentioned the Oxalis triangularis, which I have one right here, and it has a few little flowers.
Nice.
What's interesting about this plant is that it closes at night and then it reopens. So it's kind of animated, almost like little butterflies.
Why does it do that, Josh? Is it going to sleep?
It's reacting to the light. It's I can't remember the term, but there's some kind of photo something, and it, I guess it's saving its energy for
because the plant itself, you can't really tell, but the plant itself is super delicate. So it's probably just resting like all of us.
Exactly. But it seems, I mean, even, you know, today it's not super bright, but you can tell how, you know, how ready it is for the light.
Mine is right next to my TV, and sometimes I'll be watching TV in the evening, and like I'll notice it like move and shake because it's sort of like going to sleep. And sometimes it catches me, like it startles me.
Yeah. When one leaf passes the other, and kind of, you know, you don't expect the plant movement to be that sudden.
No. All right, cool. So should we move to? Oh, yeah. You got it. Plant. Do you have any aerial?
Here's a big monstera. Yes, that is what I'm here to show you. Okay,
great.
So, you know, one thing that Beth had mentioned about the aerial roots and how the plant likes to actually climb. This is really important for getting the best kind of results with your plants, because especially with a monstera, like they grow wild and they kind of go anywhere else. Oh, hey, look, there's a new leaf. So when the aerial roots start to come out, that's a great time to put a moss pole. This is basically like 3 of those little bamboo sticks with the moss shoved inside. And then what happens is that the aerial roots kind of grab onto it as if it were a tree. And that gives the plant the confidence to put out these big leaves with more splits versus like, you know, one of these kind of smaller leaves with less. So they like the moss because they also kind of like absorb moisture and nutrients from that. So here you can see like a lot of these aerial roots have kind of grown into the moss and then out the other side. And I actually, they were, you know, 8 feet long. I just had to cut them when I moved this plant out here because I kept tripping on them, honestly.
Yeah, and also, you know, tying them up like that. My monster, one of mine right now, I haven't put a moss pole in, and it's like basically wants to fall off of my table because, like Josh said, they get huge and wild, and if you don't sort of give them something to grow up, it's gonna sort of go in every direction, and they can get quite big. So this is a good way to sort of keep growing your plant, but have it stay more manageable and less unwieldy.
Exactly.
And how often are you having to water that bad boy?
Not super often. I mean, it's in a huge, actually I need to water it now. It's in this pretty huge container, so it actually usually takes a couple weeks before I have to water it again.
But these are pretty low maintenance. So this is one where like could definitely live in your bathroom and just soak up moisture that way. You could also, you know, between waterings, you could sort of mist the moss pole. So then it could get moisture that way. So, but in general, very low maintenance plant.
If this plant was suffering, how would you know? Like, how would you know if it needed some more water? Or like...
Well, here, like you can see this little tip right there. That's brown. Yeah. It could be because it needs water, or it could just be reacting to having recently been moved out here. At the same time, I did find some pests on it recently, so it also could be a stress reaction from that.
So like crispy tips or like curled leaves might mean that it's thirsty.
Okay.
Yeah.
God, they're quite sensitive, aren't they?
Well, I'm going to show y'all some plants that are a little bit more sensitive. So this one I feel like is pretty, it's pretty good. As long as it's getting the baseline of care.
Now we're going to go look at all his like real diva plants.
Yeah, I'll show you the other than the colocasia outside, the big black one. That one's a huge diva as well. But it's also really resilient. Like it's had spider mites kind of on and off for quite some time, and it continues to just put out huge leaves. Quick pit stop before going into my room.
Josh, sorry, I'm going to interrupt there. Just for people that are watching and are on video, just could you please nod if you've got a diva plant at home that you're looking like? How many people? Yeah, there's some nodding.
I'm sure everyone has one.
Yeah, Hayes looks a bit confused there. We're not sure. Yes, Roma's joined, nodding. Got a lot of diva plants. Right, okay, well, this is really helpful. You knew. Right, so go on, Josh. Show us your
Let's figure out how to keep those divas satisfied. Anyway, okay, so here's a little propagation happening. So there's a lot of cuttings from some different plants in here, like a string of hearts or this Hoya. And basically what you can do with a lot of plants is just cut off a stem and stick it in water. And then after a few weeks, they start to grow roots. So you can kind of see the roots in here.
This is great because in our last session, we did a propagation demo, but mine hadn't rooted yet. So I didn't have anything to show. So this is sort of what the next step is for anybody that was on the last session is you'll see those water roots are growing. And once you get an inch, you know, or even less, you can sort of plant that and make a new plant. It's a great way to sort of like share plants and create new plants and not spend all your money on houseplants, which is what we do.
Absolutely. And it also makes it really fun because it's easy to share without having to really give things up.
Yeah, so a lot of the houseplants at the garden are made from cutting from my plants at home. So
that's cool. Okay, so moving on, here is my room where I have most of the plants.
Amazing.
And I'm just gonna get this chair out of the way. Okay, so we'll start over here. So, okay, I'll first just say, this is probably, between this and my bathroom are the sort of semi-rainforest jungle situation. Although it kind of really depends on this like much more specific area that you're in. So we'll start over here. Okay, so just a little baseline. Normally, so this is a southeast facing window. The light shines in this way in the mornings. In the winter, it comes really deep into the room, but in the summer, it really only hits like the first couple of feet. So I'm kind of constantly rearranging plants with a season. I've actually just been rearranging this weekend. So we have this huge ficus that I just got yesterday. So I've been trying to find it's new from the demo we did last week, huh? So we have some hanging plants up here, and I'll get more into that in a minute. And then kind of this shelf, which here's one of the DIYs that I did. So this is a shelf from IKEA, and I created this little enclosure here for humidity. So for some types of plants, or even just like new kind of rooting plants, they could really use a higher humidity in order to be successful. And then, you know, there's a lot of kind of products where, you know, you can buy your own mini greenhouse. A lot of them are kind of ugly, like, you know, it's like a shelf wrapped in plastic wrap. So being like an architect, I really am kind of obsessed with aesthetics and didn't want to like have these beautiful plants that are not able to be showcased because, you know, the plastic is just kind of crinkly. So anyway, so it has these little like magnet things, and you can take it out.
Cool.
And then here we have a lot of these kind of like more precious plants. Like here you can see, these are some that I got in Japan and did a little experiment with entering the US with plants. Yeah, I was like straight up like selling them to the customs guy. I was just like, look at how beautiful, pest-free, and deserving of life in the United States these plants are. It's like
that's so cool. So the glass there creates more humidity. And for those of us that aren't architects and designers, the easiest way to do this is to just put a plastic bag around your plant.
Exactly.
Create a little balloon, a balloon of space for it. Mist it a little bit, put a plastic bag around it. And I was actually just researching this yesterday because my sister moved into a new house. So we're starting to plant her garden, and my parents have a ton of jasmine in their yard. And so we wanted to see if we could propagate the jasmine rather than buying a new plant. So basically you can take the cuttings, but because they need a little extra help rooting, you have to sort of put them in rooting soil and then put them in a plastic bag for a few weeks to help them root. So with new cuttings or sort of extra plants that need some extra care, this humidity really helps.
Oh, someone said the old soda bottle. That's also a great trick.
Yes, definitely.
Anyway, so yeah, so you'll see in here I have this little tray with water in it to help increase the humidity overall. I just misted, and this reader says it's at 81, which is
nice.
Great for plants. Yeah, cool. So anyway, and I was just kind of misting the pole as Beth had suggested earlier with Monstera. That's a really great way to encourage more aerial root growth. Nice. Anyway, so kind of going down, here's a few more things. I just came across all of these dragon bone succulents. And then on the bottom, so here's another way that you can increase the humidity, is just kind of using these glass cloche.
Yeah.
Which you can find anywhere. I mean, these are from IKEA. You can see it's really, really steamy. This is a super precious plant that, it's all of its roots rotted, so I'm trying to get it to regrow its roots. But anyway, so here's a heat mat, which raises the temperature around the base, and then that encourages a little bit more root growth. So I'm trying to get some of these are all kind of cuttings that I'm trying to root to turn into new plants and share with some friends and some members of the community.
Great, cool. All right, so yeah.
I'm just going to interject.
Yes.
We've got a question. It's actually to Beth
Sure.
About jasmine cuttings. Anne Reynolds is saying, I'm trying this and it's true they won't grow roots. Can Beth please say what she should do again?
Yeah. So full disclosure, I haven't done this yet, but after I did a research session yesterday, and I think in order to sort of encourage them to grow roots, it's recommended to dip the cuttings in rooting hormone before you put them in the sort of seedling or cutting soil, and then put a plastic bag around them. I don't have, for those of you that either don't have rooting hormones or want to be sort of more organic or DIY, you can, if you just Google DIY rooting hormones, there's a lot of sort of kitchen household items that you can substitute, for example, apple cider vinegar or honey, just with some dilution, and then dipping the cutting, in the homemade rooting hormone, and then before you plant it. So that's what I'm gonna try. But feel free, we can compare notes. I'm not sure, Anne, if you tried rooting hormone and it still didn't work, but that's sort of what my research has taught me.
Anne, would you like to say, are you happy with that? Yeah, thumbs up. Thank you. Yeah, okay, yeah, fantastic.
Cinnamon as well, like Alex said, is another sort of household supplement, but mixed success, she said. So I'm actually planning to try a few different ones so I can report back.
Fantastic. We've also got a comment here saying mixed success with cinnamon instead of rooting hormone. So what do you guys think about that? Cinnamon as well? That's a household.
Yeah, cinnamon is on the list of another sort of rooting hormone supplement. And my plan is to try a few different ones with the stuff in my parents' kitchen.
So you're saying if I had some jasmine cuttings and I had put cinnamon on my coffee, and then I can just pop some cinnamon on my jasmine cuttings.
So,
I mean, I say that, basically. I don't know.
Basically, you put a little bit of cinnamon on the sort of the bottom of the cutting that you've taken, and then before you plant it in the cutting soil, and then ideally you put a plastic bag around it, mist it, give it a lot of attention for a few weeks, and then ideally you're going to have small roots that come out under the on that tip where you've put the rooting hormone, and then you would plant it sort of in its final resting place.
Okay. Right, so now we've got a challenge because we love plants, and a lot of us on this call. I'm just going to be a little bit strict now about the questions we're talking about, because I just want to make sure everyone gets a chance to ask their questions or share their top tips in the chat. So
and also, Roxy, we're just about to get to the really cool plants in Josh's flat, so we should definitely have a look at those. And then maybe after that, we can head over to some questions of everyone else's plants at home.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so Josh, carry on.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So in this corner, I guess you have most of my like rare and or precious plants. Most of these are aroids, which are the kind of monstera, philodendron, and anthurium, which all kind of, you know, there's so much variation, and there are some really kind of crazy weird ones. A lot of them have these like kind of almost velvety leaf texture, this shine to them. So anyway, I'd say these are the divas. These are the ones that love high humidity, and kind of are very sensitive to direct sunlight. So I have them on this side of the room because, as I mentioned before, the way the sunlight shines in, it sort of misses them, although it kind of creates this kind of bright, indirect lighting situation, which sort of mimics the, you know, flecks of light that you get on the jungle floor. And then here I have a kind of like heavy duty humidifier setup.
Nice. So
it says 84, it's not quite that. And I don't really need it to be on right now, but I turned it on for the purpose of the demonstration. And I have this little fan set up here so that it kind of blows the humidity up instead of it kind of just, you know, sometimes it trickles out and just goes down on the floor, and then you find a big wet spot, which is not useful for any reasons. So I'll do like a quick kind of zoom on some of these. Like,
yeah.
This one this just grew. So I got this plant at the beginning of quarantine and had all these leaves, and then it grew this one super long one. And it's like sort of sparkly too. I don't know if the camera
I think it's reacting to being in like a perfect space.
I hope so. I also fertilized it a lot.
Nice.
Like this one has all these like kind of little lines. They're super fuzzy. And here's sort of like this one's called like a chain cactus. So a quick talk. So these are kind of the epiphytic plants. So what it really means, like in nature, they're not growing out of the ground. They're growing, as Beth mentioned, mostly off of trees. And because of that, like they're not really growing in dirt. It's more of a mix of like bark and kind of this just random organic matter that gets stuck in the crux of trees. So the soil mixture is much different. As you can see here, it's kind of like a mix of moss, bark, and some like clay pebbles. With this one has no soil. And then a lot of them also, you have the kind of similar mixture, but you put moss on top, which helps to create like a microclimate for the plant itself of just like humidity. And then that helps the new leaves, which are really sensitive when they're unfurling, to unfurl successfully.
Yeah, so I think like the main takeaway, obviously Josh has a lot of, you know, experience and a lot of really cool plants, but I think the main takeaway for even the most novice of houseplant owner is that you just want to do everything in your power to recreate the place where this plant came from in your house, whether that's where you put it, the soil that you put it in, the misting or the water that it's receiving. That's really just the main takeaway.
Absolutely. And another tip is that when you have these new leaves that are kind of in the process of unfurling, they love a little bit of mist.
Yes.
Sometimes they get stuck, and then it'll cause a problem where the leaf kind of grows into itself. The stem pokes a hole through the leaf before it actually has a chance to unfurl.
Is that a variegated monstera that I see in the bottom?
Yes, it is.
Nice.
So this is the Thai constellation kind,
cool.
Which is a little bit less. So a little background on this plant. There's two types of variegated monstera: the Thai constellation and the albo. The albo is the one that has more like maybe like the half white, half green, and it's more marbled, while this is more kind of like speckly. The albo has really become insane in like the houseplant market. Like you will see people selling unrooted cuttings, even without a leaf, like just a piece of the stem that you have a chance to grow a plant from, for over $100.
So I'm
and for real plants.
that don't know what we're talking about, this is the same plant that we were looking at in Josh's living room, the cheese plant or the Monstera deliciosa. But then variegation is when you see and it doesn't just happen with this plant, but all types of plants where you see this sort of marbling or other colors that are woven into the plant, then it's not just green. And there's 2 types for this one. And what he's talking about, the half and half, I don't know if you guys can see this on my Instagram, but it's basically the other type, which is not what he has, will grow a leaf sometimes that's half white, half green, which is really cool. But getting cuttings for those, they're super rare and super expensive. So
yeah, and also because for sure, or take cuttings and start your retirement fund. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. I just kind of lost my train of thought. Anyway, we'll keep going. Let's see. I have some jungle cacti in here, which are cool because of the way that they trail and like split off. They're kind of funky and have a lot of personality. Yeah, this is some type of Ripsalis. I'm not sure exactly what, to be honest. Nice. This is also a Ripsalis, the Paradoxa. I think that's probably my favorite one. And here's a nice little new growth bud happening. This is a fern leaf cactus. So this is also a jungle cactus, but it kind of looks like a fern. Just like such a strange plant. I love it.
I think
and then
you've got a little like fly trap in that plant or something there.
Yeah, I do, and you can see how much gross stuff it has on it. Yeah, so fungus gnats are an issue. It's hard to maintain the kind of level of moisture and humidity that the plants love without getting some fungus gnats. So what I often do, I use these little traps, and this one's been in there a while, so maybe it's not quite as an emergency as it looks. But the traps help to kind of trap the adults. And then if you water with neem oil in your water, and you can kind of Google neem oil soil drench, that'll give you the right kind of ratio to use. That helps to kind of kill the eggs.
Yeah.
And they're not really harmful to your plants. They're more annoying, and then sometimes the larvae do chew on the roots. Yeah. If they're chewing on the roots, it's also another problem because it means that the roots are rotting in some capacity, and then, you got a whole other problem. But if you see a few flying around, it doesn't mean that you have an emergency.
Yeah. Just a quick question for Josh. Sorry. Are there any like vegan friendly ways to deal with pests?
I will. Okay, I don't 100% know that this is true, but I believe that neem oil would technically be vegan. It's oil from a plant.
Comes from a tree.
Yeah. But as in, could it instead of killing the pests, could it make them just want to go somewhere else?
That is a fair question, and no, I think the best strategy for that is 2 things. 1, keeping them dry enough that it doesn't happen, and 2, you can kind of put a layer of gravel or rocks or sand on the top of the plant, and then that it just kind of tricks them. They don't realize that there's this nice moist soil underneath, so they probably will go elsewhere.
Right. Cool. So now you've got a little desert windowsill as well.
Exactly. And this honestly by no means is really a desert climate because the sort of tropical nature of like the rest of the room kind of takes precedent. But I found that these do well on the windowsill and the light, and they honestly don't mind the humidity. So here we got another one of those spiral cactus. I kind of can't resist.
The like 2 ball.
This one?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this thing is awesome. This is like it's called a Tephrocarpus geometricus. And yeah, they really just grow like it was not $19. Wow. They grow like, just globes. If you look them up, you can see some really insane giant ones that just have hundreds of balls, like giant ball with like hundreds of tiny balls on it. It's just so funny how circular they are. Sorry, what?
A geometricus.
Yeah, it's a Tephrocarpus. Tephro cactus. Yeah. Geometricus.
I love that you've got your like triangle next to your plants. It's like you've got every kind of
This thing?
design possible on that shelf.
This is actually from London.
Ah.
A friend of mine got it from some bookstore in London. So
Cool.
I want to say put it out there just for you guys, but no, I do love mixing little trinkets with plants. I find it's fun because it gives a whole new scale, you know? It's like a little world instead of just being an object.
Yeah, it's a desert.
Anyway, okay. So now...
All right, the main event. Is everybody ready? This is my favorite
I want to
part.
say that was the main event, to be honest, but this is like kind of, whatever, the follow through. Okay, so here's my bathroom. And I also have quite a few plants in here because I am super lucky to have this skylight.
Yeah.
So when you have a skylight in your bathroom, there's kind of no limit as to what you can do if you're creative enough. Hi, everyone. So yeah, it started, I got this like another like IKEA shelf, which I just removed the bottom shelf of so it fits over the toilet. And then a bunch of really nice, you know, this kind of underneath the skylight, not exactly, but close enough. So here we have some more kind of like, here's a cutting of that jungle the fern leaf, some more like philodendron and anthurium. Here's a nice unfurling leaf. We got some more jewel orchids. Here's one that's I recently got that's really amazing because it has almost like this pink.
Wow.
Kind of another one here. And then we have a couple more epiphytic plants. So these are all kind of mounted on pieces of cork, which I got from a pet store. Like they have them for, you know, your salamander or whatever in, you know, for creating the sort of things for them to hide under. And it's great if you just kind of put moss. These are the plants that would kind of scramble up the side of trees in nature. So this is a good way to kind of replicate that.
Very cool.
And then here's a staghorn fern, which we talked about last week.
Yeah, so this is a type of fern that grows on trees, and Josh has recreated sort of a moss-ish type area for it to live, but they also on their own grow, what are they called, Josh? The like sheep?
It's called a shield frond.
Shield frond, and it looks like a big brown like fan basically, and it grows around the bottom, and it's what the fern is growing out of. So I have a huge one at home, and it's not mounted like that, but often you see them mounted because they don't really require much soil. And I actually, to water mine, I put it in the bath and basically shower it like as if it's getting its rainforest rain.
Yep, and that's exactly what I do too. I just take this thing off the wall and I, you know, lean it up against the wall in the shower and just let the soil run a little bit. But yeah, so basically like what would happen is that my hope is that eventually it will grow some shield fronds that kind of grow around this mound. And the whole purpose of the shield frond in the wild is to kind of capture these bark and whatever types of like little organic matter. So it's almost like it's creating a pot for itself to hold on to the medium that it's going to gain its sustenance from.
Another important point about staghorn ferns is that they grow this almost like fuzz on them that looks, you see how some of them have this like white, it almost looks like dust, but it's not, you're not supposed to wipe it off, just FYI.
It's spores. It's the way that the fern reproduces.
Yes.
So it's kind of trying to get it to focus right, but you get the point. It looks silvery. Cool. Yeah, here's the easiest way to tell because for some reason it's missing some there.
Yeah, totally.
So, and then I was determined to figure out ways to keep more plants in my bathroom. So I've actually been experimenting with this little design. So I have a 3D printer, architect things. And so I made this little, like, it's almost like a little bridge section that floats on the top of this bar and kind of allows me to do that whole deal up there. So it fits over and it has a slight slope. So this thing is kind of dirty and it's a prototype piece, but you can see this little notch there. So it slopes that direction and then it goes through the drain and then theoretically will drain, on the inside of the shower.
Very cool. I think you need to sell this as a product. I think I would buy it.
Yeah, I want to. I'm trying to figure out the mechanics of it, and also if this this type of shower is really standard enough that I can make something that fits on a wide range versus having to like customize it for each person. Then it becomes an issue of the work to the money that I can charge for it, or even that I feel, comfortable charging. Anyway, so yeah, they kind of also have just been spilling over. Oh, here's a
nice. What's that?
some moss. They're Marimo moss balls. They live at the bottom of lakes, and they're pretty chill. And I've been trying to kind of save a little bit of counter space. It's always a battle between like I just throw plants on here because I don't know where to put them, and then eventually I come through and clean them out a little bit.
Cool.
So anyway, yeah, that pretty much concludes the tour.
Thank you, Josh. It's amazing.
Yeah, thank you all for giving me this chance to share.
So as you guys can see, Josh is just sort of not too much space he's working with, but he's created different climates and just doing his best to recreate space for these plants that they sort of makes them feel at home.
Sorry, I'm just still a little bit staggered by just how incredible Josh's home is. I hadn't realised that it was like that old show where you're like, who lives behind the keyhole? And like in Josh's case, it's like every single room reveals a whole new plant world. I feel really embarrassed because, here's one ficus that is, like I said, not doing so well. And you guys have got like ornamental plants you're bringing into the US and, advocating for its immigration status. And then you've got a whole shelf of them in your bathroom and it's so sustainable. My mind is blown. But anyway, wow. So
Thank you.
Yeah, that's incredible. And both thank you so much. That was, God, we got to up our game, haven't we, Vanessa?
Yes.
Hello.
I will say, if anybody has a bathroom with a light in it, don't put it to waste, because I don't have a window in my bathroom and it's like my biggest regret. So don't put your bathroom with light to waste. Put plants in there and it'll make your life much better.
It also just feels amazing to like shower surrounded by plants. It feels very primal and connected to nature.
And then we are asking all of you for money for Dolphin Herb Garden. And we'll put that back on the chat again, just in case you haven't had the chance to donate yet. And like me, your mind has just expanded exponentially watching both Beth and Josh homes, and also hearing from Marie as well about incredible garden there that we can also look at on their social.
Beth, you were going to tell us a little bit about.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to, I can't let this opportunity pass to not sort of say a word about what's happening in LA and the rest of the US and the rest of the world right now related to racial justice, organizing and activism. So I just wanted to, for those of you that might be interested, it's an important cause to Josh and I and to a lot of you. And for those of you that might be interested, I wanted to share some resources if you wanted to learn more about what's happening in LA and the rest of the US. So Black Lives Matter chapter in Los Angeles is a great resource. The Bail Project is a national rotating bail fund for supporting people of color and protesters that need support getting out of jail. And the Okra Project is a food, sort of a cooking and food delivery organization for Black trans people, cooking sort of culturally appropriate and free meals for people that need it. So these are really some of only a few of many great resources. And if you have any questions about this in particular, you can also discuss with Josh and I. And that's it. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much. I think for now, obviously, again, reminder, donate to the Curve Garden in their website. You can go to support the garden. They've got a donate button, and I'm sure we'll hear a lot. We'll put out on our page as well what the Curve Garden's going to be doing when they launch their crowdfunder very soon.